We are getting some breaking news in the investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie.
He covered everything. His face was hidden beneath a balaclava. His hands were inside tactical gloves. His head was pulled down into the hood of a jacket. He moved in darkness. He disabled the camera. He came prepared, but he forgot about 1 inch. One narrow strip of exposed skin between the bottom of his sleeve and the top of his glove. 1 inch that federal investigators zoomed in on frame by frame. 1 inch that may now be running through criminal databases in real time. 47 days after Nancy Guthrie vanished from her Tucson home, that one detail has quietly become one of the most important pieces of physical evidence in this entire investigation. Because that inch is not just skin, it appears to be ink, and ink tells stories. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. On January 31st, 2026, she had dinner with family as it returned to her home in the Catalina foothills and went inside just before 10 p.m. Surveillance footage captured her garage door closing at 9:50 p.m. That is the last confirmed image of her. At 1:47 a.m., her Nest doorbell camera went offline. Not glitched, not powered down, physically removed. At 2:12 a.m., a motion sensor on the property triggered. At 2:28 a.m., her pacemaker stopped syncing with her Apple devices. Her blood was later found on the exterior porch. There has been no confirmed proof of life since. Ransom notes were sent to newsrooms, not directly to her family. Both deadlines passed. Silence followed. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos confirmed publicly that investigators believe the crime was targeted and planned. He warned the suspect could strike again. That is the structural backdrop. A now layer in February 10th. 9 days after Nancy disappeared, the FBI announced they had recovered footage from her Nest system by working directly with Google's back-end servers. The suspect had removed the physical camera. He believed that meant the footage was gone. It wasn't. Agents recovered images from cloud data that he never knew existed. What they saw was a masked individual approaching Nancy's front door. He wore a balaclava. He carried an Ozark Trail 25-liter backpack, a Walmart private label product. A firearm holster was visible at his waist. He reached up in the dark and covered the lens before disconnecting the device. He knew exactly where it was mounted. He had studied that house. A Fox News sources reported the FBI recovered images of what appears to be the same individual on separate visits, one with equipment, one without. Investigators have not formally confirmed that second visit, but analysts have described it as consistent with pre-crime surveillance. This was not impulsive. This was deliberate. The suspect's physical description released publicly is limited. Male, approximately 5 feet 9 inches to 5 feet 10 inches. Average build. Right-handed. Right-handed matters, because the visible marking is on his right wrist. Former FBI Supervisory Special Agent and profiler Jim Clemente analyzed the footage and stated publicly that what appears to be visible on the suspect's wrist is likely a tattoo. His assessment was direct. If that is a tattoo, it will help them rule in and rule out people. Then he added something even more telling. He is not a professional. That statement carries weight because this individual masked his identity meticulously. He concealed his face, his hair, his neck, his hands. He disabled the camera. He used a generic backpack brand that blends into millions of outdoor purchases. He appeared to have conducted surveillance weeks prior, and yet he left exposed the one thing that cannot be removed quickly: a tattoo. A professional criminal does not just hide their face, they hide identifiers. A tattoo is not temporary. It is biography written in ink. Crime Stories brought in Darren Rosa, a 30-year tattoo veteran and owner of Rising Dragon Tattoos in New York, to examine the visible sliver. Then he was shown a zoomed-in still image, just a fragment. From that fragment, he made 3 technical observations that now carry investigative significance. First, the style appears to be black and gray. In tattoo culture, Black and gray is not merely aesthetic. It has historical roots in prison culture and southwestern gang traditions. For decades, inmates without access to colored inks refined black and gray, shading into a highly specialized style. That style migrated from prison yards into gang culture across Arizona, Southern California, New Mexico, and Texas. It is dominant in the southwestern United States. Nancy Guthrie disappeared in Arizona. Second, Rosa assessed that what is visible is likely not an isolated piece. It appears to be the continuation of a larger design, possibly part of a full sleeve extending from wrist to shoulder. If true, that changes everything, because a full sleeve of black and gray ink is not subtle. It often continues onto the hands, sometimes onto the neck, sometimes even onto the face. Those tattoos are not easily concealed in daily life. They are recognizable. Third, Rosa placed the tattoo geographically. He stated the style is common among individuals who operate outdoors in high sun environments, again aligning with southwestern culture. If that assessment holds, the suspect's likely cultural orbit narrows. Style is not proof, but style is filter. Investigators do not need proof immediately. They need parameters. Here's how that works operationally. The FBI's Next Generation Identification System contains millions of arrest records. During booking, suspects are photographed. Tattoos are documented. Many departments photograph distinctive markings specifically for identification. Gang intelligence databases catalog tattoo iconography. Symbols, saints, numbers, memorial scripts, angel wings, cloud work, script fonts. If the visible sliver corresponds to known imagery, even partially, analysts can narrow the field dramatically, from millions to thousands, from thousands to hundreds, from hundreds to possibly a handful. Former FBI Special Agent Jonathan Gilliam stated publicly that if the suspect has ever been arrested, that tattoo would likely already exist in a booking record. All someone has to do is connect the dots. That process is happening quietly. Simultaneously, the tag specialists were reportedly brought in to analyze vandalism on a utility box near Nancy's home. In gang culture, the same symbolic language appears both on skin and on walls. Those two investigative threads do not operate separately, they converge. The tattoo is no longer a curiosity. It is an entry point, and here is why it matters psychologically. The suspect believed he controlled the narrative. He removed the camera, he masked himself, he prepared. But he underestimated one thing: cloud storage, and a single inch of skin. A tattoo is not just art, it is metadata. It contains style, technique, placement, cultural influence, sometimes affiliation. And when that tattoo is captured on a federal image, even partially, it becomes searchable. That is where this case shifts from visual speculation to operational mechanics. The suspect approached Nancy Guthrie's front door, masked and gloved. He carried a backpack. He covered the camera lens before disconnecting it. He believed the image would never exist, but the FBI recovered it from Google's back-end servers. And in that recovered image, a sliver of black and gray ink is visible on his right wrist. Former FBI profiler Jim Clemente stated that this detail could allow investigators to rule in and rule out people. That phrasing matters. Because investigators do not need to identify the tattoo immediately. They need to eliminate people who do not have it. Here is how that works in practice. The FBI's Next Generation Identification (NGI) system is the largest biometric database in the United States. It contains millions of records from prior arrests and bookings. When individuals are booked, their tattoos are often photographed and cataloged, especially if they are distinctive. Those images are searchable. Separately, the National Gang Center and state-level gang intelligence databases maintain visual libraries of tattoo iconography associated with criminal organizations, symbols, numerical codes, religious figures stylized in specific ways, cloud work, memorial scripts, certain shading patterns unique to prison environments. When Darren Rosa identified the visible marking as black and gray in style, he did not just describe its color, he placed it inside a genre with geographic and cultural context. Black and gray tattooing has strong roots in southwestern gang and prison culture. Arizona, Southern California, New Mexico, Texas. Nancy Guthrie disappeared in Arizona. Geography narrows the field. Now add placement. The visible ink appears on the underside of the right wrist. Rosa assessed that if this is part of a larger sleeve, it likely continues upward along the forearm, possibly extending across the elbow and toward the upper arm. Full sleeves in black and gray, prison-influenced styles are rarely isolated to one limb. They often accompany additional ink on the opposite arm, the hands, the neck, sometimes the face. That matters because full-sleeve tattoos are not easily concealed in everyday settings. They are remembered. They are recognized by coworkers, neighbors, associates, former cellmates. If the suspect is part of a documented gang or criminal organization, the tattoo may correspond to known iconography. If he has been arrested before, booking photographs likely capture that sleeve. If he has never been arrested, then the tattoo still exists physically, and someone has seen it. The process investigators use here is filtration, style filters, placement filters, height and build filters, right-handedness filters, regional proximity filters. If the tattoo contains recognizable elements, angel wings, cloud shading, OS memorial script, analysts compare those against existing booking images from Arizona and neighboring states. This is not done manually by flipping through binders. It is done through cross-reference digital systems. And this is only one thread. The digital forensics thread runs alongside it. Investigators are seeking data from Google and Apple systems tied to Nancy's home. Any phone operating near her residence in the early hours of February 1st would have interacted with cell towers. Phones log location data. They record movement patterns. Even if powered off later, historical data often remains recoverable through provider records. If a device traveled from the Catalina foothills toward Phoenix or elsewhere during the relevant window, that trail could exist. When tattoo filtering intersects with cell phone movement data, the field narrows further. Then there is DNA. DNA, recovered from inside Nancy's home, did not immediately match profiles in CODIS. But CODIS is not the endpoint. Investigative genetic genealogy operates differently. Instead of seeking an exact offender match, it identifies familial relationships through publicly available genetic databases. Chief genetic genealogist C.C. Moore explained publicly that if viable DNA exists, it becomes a matter of time, not luck. If the mixed DNA sample can be separated and sequenced, genealogical triangulation can identify family trees. Family trees lead to surnames. Surnames lead to individuals. If investigators identify a suspect through tattoo filtering or digital movement analysis, DNA can confirm or eliminate that person conclusively. Now, consider how these threads converge. Tattoo databases narrow candidates. Cell tower data identifies devices present. DNA confirms physical presence. Each thread alone is incomplete. Together, they form a tightening net. Meanwhile, additional images recovered from motion-activated cameras around Nancy's property, pool, backyard, side yard, are under review. Even thumbnail images matter. They establish frequency, timing, patterns of approach. If the suspect returned more than once, that suggests familiarity with the environment. And familiarity suggests either prior access or guidance from someone with access. Former FBI agent Steve Moore described this investigative stage as pulling up the couch cushions. That is not regression. It is refinement. And now, layer in public pressure. A recall effort has been launched against Sheriff Chris Nanos. His handling of the case has drawn criticism, from the alleged early release of the crime scene to the routing of DNA evidence to a private laboratory rather than the FBI's national lab at Quantico. Political controversy does not halt federal investigation. The FBI task force assigned to Nancy's case continues independent of local political turbulence. That distinction matters, because database searches do not pause for elections. Digital warrants do not wait for recall votes. The tattoo remains in the system. The DNA remains in the pipeline. The digital forensics requests remain active, and the reward structure introduces another variable. The FBI is offering $100,000 for information leading to Nancy's location or the arrest and conviction of those responsible. The Guthrie family is offering $1 million. Anonymous. In communities where loyalty structures exist, large financial incentives alter equations. Tattooed individuals often operate inside tight social circles, circles built on trust. But stress fractures trust. Former profiler Jim Clemente stated that people around the suspect should be watching for sudden stress, behavioral changes, altered routines, attempts to modify appearance. You cannot remove a full sleeve tattoo overnight. You cannot erase years of ink quickly. You can attempt to cover it. You can avoid public exposure, but concealment invites scrutiny. If this suspect exists inside a known community, someone has already recognized that risk. The question is not whether investigators are searching. They are. The question is whether someone decides that $1 million outweighs silence. Investigations like this do not collapse in a single dramatic moment. They tighten, quietly, incrementally, and then, without warning to the public, they close. Right now, in the Nancy Guthrie case, 3 independent systems are moving at the same time. The tattoo filtration process, the DNA genealogy pipeline, the digital movement analysis. Each of those systems operates differently. Each has its own timeline. But when they intersect, the result is not coincidence. It is identification. Start with the tattoo. A single inch of black and gray ink on the underside of a right wrist, filtered by style, geography, height, build, right-handedness, regional proximity. If that tattoo belongs to a known gang structure, it carries iconography. If it belongs to someone previously arrested, it was likely photographed at booking. If it is part of a full sleeve, it becomes even more distinct. Because sleeves in that style are rarely abstract. They tell stories, immemorial names, dates, religious imagery stylized in specific ways. Cloud work common in southwestern prison culture. If analysts can isolate a fragment that resembles known imagery, they do not need the entire sleeve. They need a match percentage. Now, layer in digital forensics. Phones do not simply exist. They move. They connect to towers. They leave breadcrumbs. Even burner phones log cell tower pings. Even prepaid devices interact with infrastructure. Investigators are seeking data from Google and Apple systems associated with activity in the Catalina foothills area around the early hours of February 1st. If a device repeatedly appeared near Nancy's home during prior reconnaissance visits, that becomes pattern evidence. If that same device traveled north after 2:28 a.m., that becomes trajectory evidence. Trajectory narrows suspects dramatically. Now, consider DNA. The glove found 2 miles away was ruled out, linked to a restaurant employee, and determined unrelated. That thread is closed, but DNA from inside Nancy's home remains active. It is reportedly a mixed sample, which complicates separation. However, investigative genetic genealogy does not require a perfect sample. It requires usable markers. If those markers exist, Genealogists construct family trees. Family trees intersect with arrest records, social media, property ownership, and known associates. When genealogical analysis produces surnames, these investigators cross-reference those names against tattoo matches and cell phone movement patterns. When 2 or 3 threads intersect on the same individual, the probability curve changes completely. And here is the part that shifts this from evidence to psychology. This suspect believed he controlled exposure. He masked his face. He covered his hair. He wore gloves. He disconnected the camera. He chose a common backpack brand. He returned after studying the property. He may have believed he had eliminated identifiers, but identifiers are not just faces. They are behaviors. They are patterns. They are affiliations. They are ink. And ink cannot be turned off like a camera. Former profiler Jim Clemente describes suspects in cases like this as running, not physically necessarily, but psychologically. Running from routine, and running from familiarity. Running from the moment someone in their circle says, "That looks like you." Because full-sleeve black and gray tattooing is not anonymous. If Rose's assessment is correct, if this marking is part of a larger sleeve, then that sleeve has been visible in workplaces, at gas stations, at family gatherings, at gyms, at traffic stops, at construction sites. Someone has seen it. And in cases involving reward structures like this, loyalty fractures. The FBI is offering $100,000. The Guthrie family is offering $1 million. Anonymous. Communities built on silence operate under pressure. Pressure creates doubt. Doubt creates leaks. And leaks close cases. Now add institutional pressure. A recall effort against Sheriff Chris Nanos is underway. His past employment record and alleged inconsistencies are under review by the Pima County Board of Supervisors. Public approval ratings sit at 5%. Criticism over evidence handling and resource management has been documented. But here is the operational reality. The FBI task force assigned to this case does not pause for political turbulence. Federal systems continue running queries. Digital warrants continue processing. Genealogy labs continue separating markers. The investigation moves despite controversy, not because of it, which brings us to the convergence point. If tattoo filtering produces a short list, if genealogical analysis produces a surname, if digital movement data identifies a phone traveling in alignment with the timeline, investigators do not need certainty before they act. They need probable cause. That threshold can be reached when 2 independent evidence streams point to the same individual. 3 streams make it decisive. At that point, the case shifts from public mystery to sealed affidavit, search warrants, interviews, device seizures, financial record subpoenas, and potentially arrest. When that moment arrives, it will not be announced as, "We solved it because of 1 inch." It will be presented as a culmination of investigative work. But internally, that inch may be what began the narrowing. The suspect underestimated the permanence of ink. He underestimated cloud recovery. He underestimated the integration of databases. He underestimated that black and gray prison-style tattooing carries cultural signatures that specialists can decode. He may also be underestimating the pressure building around him. Former FBI agent Jonathan Gilliam said it plainly. Somebody just has to connect the dots. Those dots are being connected. The tattoo, the DNA, the digital trail, the canvassing of neighbors and contractors, the review of thumbnail images from motion cameras, the analysis of vandalized utility infrastructure near the property. None of these threads exist alone. They form a lattice, and lattices collapse inward. Nancy Guthrie is still missing. There has been no confirmed proof of life. There has been no confirmed declaration of death. But there is a man who reached up in the dark and covered a camera lens, and in doing so, left 1 inch of himself behind. 1 inch now sitting in federal databases. 1 inch analyzed by a 30-year tattoo veteran. 1 inch flagged by a former FBI profiler, and 1 inch filtering through gang intelligence systems across the southwestern United States. Somewhere, someone has already recognized it. That is how cases like this close, not with spectacle, but with recognition. A wrist, a sleeve, a memory, a call placed quietly to a tip line. Because silence protects no one when 3 investigative pipelines are converging on the same man. And convergence is not loud. It is inevitable.